Final transfer update of the day, I'm sorry to say, and when I say I'm sorry to say it, it's just more bad news, really. I thought today was going to start up a little bit more promising, linked with Ian Martson, who looks like a really good player for Chelsea, played at Burnley last season. Thought we'd be announcing Edson Alvarez, unless we have announced it. I've been sat by the computer most of the day, I haven't noticed it, probably got buried under all the bad news. I thought we might get announced another player. I was hopefully looking forward to a bit of news on Ansu Fati. Yes, I know it's unrealistic, but hope is in short supply at West Ham at the moment. This has been a horrendous transfer window. I can't actually remember anything quite like it in terms of sales, particularly given that we may well be making quite a significant amount of money on these sales. It's been quite hard to process. It's been a really weird day. Anyway, it's totally miserable, and I do apologise. More bad news about Lucas Paqueta. He wants to go, I'm sorry to say. Probably no surprise there. I'm not telling any of you anything you wouldn't have guessed yourselves. Why wouldn't he want to go play for the best manager in the league, Pep Guardiola, and treble winners? They're going to win more trophies, aren't they? At least double his wages. You think that would be clear? He's probably going to earn £250,000 a week at Manchester City. He's going to be playing a style of football which he'll clearly love as well. And the sources are really, really good on that, both from the club side and the player side. I think he'd rather not go on strike or do anything like that. He'd like it to be done, really rather amicably. There's not a lot you can do when these super clubs come in, be it, as I mentioned it earlier, there's no point in me going over it again. I'm a little bit more concerned with what the club are going to do with regard to trying to source a replacement. I mean, you'd have hoped we had some sort of idea. We're going to need a sort of skillful midfielder, really, aren't we? But it doesn't look particularly good because it's taken us just so long to really try and replace Declan Rice. Anyway, I do apologise. I am totally miserable about it. I know a lot of you will obviously share that sort of misery. It's hard to be optimistic, isn't it? In terms of the other good news, depending on how you look at it, James Ward Prowse, the deal is done. Not just with the club, Southampton, but also the player himself. He's agreed personal terms with West Ham. That was always going to be easy because he wants to come and play for West Ham. Which sort of actually means even more actually at the moment, bearing in mind the number of people that don't want to play for West Ham. I think it's quite important that we get some players in that do. A medical booked. It says medical booked for this week. What does that mean? I mean, surely West Ham want to be rushing this deal through. It's not like we need to learn anything more about it. We've been trying to buy the player for the past 18 months, so I think it's probably wise that we get the deal done as quickly as possible. There was some talk about him. I think Southampton might be playing Norwich or something at the weekend. We don't want him doing that. We need him ready for Bournemouth, quite frankly. So I don't know what the hold-up is there. Hopefully there's not one. Hopefully he's announced and hopefully he can play. The other news, of course, is Harry Maguire. West Ham have had a bid of £30 million accepted. There's been no additional news on that. It wouldn't surprise me at all, by the way, if Harry Maguire took one look at what was happening at West Ham at the moment and just thought, actually, I'm not going to go there. This is not an ambitious club. And I do think all the stories are slightly different. I think the Declan Rice story is slightly different to Scamacca, and that Scamacca story is slightly different to Lucas Paqueta. But I think if if you're on the outside looking and you don't care about all that stuff, you just look like West Ham. West Ham look like a selling club at the moment. There is no doubt in my mind about that. I think that's how we'll be perceived. And I think if I was Harry Maguire, I'm overly bothered about the transfer, but if he's looking in, probably thinking, actually, that's not the club for me to go to. It's hard to think we'll be better than last season. You're going to lose 3 top-class international players there in Scamacca, Rice and Paqueta. It's really hard to make the case that we will be better than last season. Surely we've got to be worse. And look, there's a lot of other stuff which it sort of calls into question, about the club, which we'll have to deal with another time. For what it's worth, I don't think the Paqueta thing was avoidable. I think when Man City come in, there's nothing you can particularly do about it. But I think they're different. I think the Scamacca one was avoidable for reasons I've gone into in the past. I think the Rice situation was totally avoidable for reasons I've gone into in the past, which I'm quite happy to clarify in the future. But you know what? I don't particularly want to clarify them now because I've had enough, and I'm sure you've had enough as well. It's miserable enough. I'm going to go and make myself something to eat and finish the second half of The Big Lebowski, which I've watched I've watched it about 6 or 7 times. I don't need to watch the second half of The Big Lebowski, but it's a bloody good film, right? So why not? Anyway, sorry to be the bearer of more bad news. I'll be back tomorrow. I think early morning video. Will probably be. I want to sort of have a little look at what David Moyes' plan is, but try and do it without sticking the boot in too much on this one, and actually look what is David Moyes' plan. I think that's really the interesting one. Anyway, I've waffled for far too long. Lucas Paqueta's going. Is it confirmed? No, it's not. But it's not going to be. West Ham would literally have to force him against his will into a situation he doesn't want to be in. The best thing we can do is come to an agreement with Manchester City. It looks like the news is changing all the time. Earlier on, I said about the story about Cole Palmer. Looks like Cole Palmer actually wants to go to Brighton, so he wouldn't be included as part of any deal. Can't blame him either, can you? I mean, there really is a club with a succession plan for anything and sort of everything they do. Anyway, I'll catch up with you tomorrow.